Yeah, so we're live. So we'll be reading the computer science curriculum, which is chapter 3 of NCF 3.2.3. The tremendous effectiveness of the computer and computing technology in shaping modern society has created the need for an educated public that can utilize such technology most effectively for the betterment of a society and humankind. There is, therefore, a growing realization of the need to have a place for these domains of knowledge in school curriculum. A distinction must be made between information technology curriculum, which involves the use and application of the tools of information and computer age, and the computer science curriculum, which is concerned with how these tools were designed and deployed. There's a distinction between information technology and computer science. Information technology looks at the use and application of the tools, while computer science deals with how these tools were designed and deployed. Both of these have their own place in school education. While several countries have implemented CS and or IT curricula in schools, we need to be aware of the challenges that Indian schools students face. The first of these is the paucity of technology resources for computer science. It is absurd to teach computer science, let alone computer usage, without access to computing resources. Providing computer access and connectivity for all children is a tremendous technological and economic challenge. However, given the pervasive impact of computer technologies, we need to address this infrastructure challenge seriously and explore viable and innovative alternatives with regard to hardware, software, and connectivity technologies appropriate for rural and urban Indian schools. We also need to address the issue of development of a comprehensive and coherent curriculum model in computer science and IT. Comprehensive and coherent curriculum model, which can serve as the basis for the beginning of a discussion between educators, administrators, and general public. Certain core elements are common to several CS and IT curricula and are applicable to Indian schools as well. These include concepts of iterative processes and algorithms, general problem-solving strategies arising from computing, possibilities of computer usage, the place occupied by computers in the modern world, and the societal issues arise thereby. I think this is something which deserves a lot of attention. Iterative processes and algorithms. I think this is something which we learn from computer science, how we when I talk of iterative processes, that's a vast area. One is in terms of how you repeat it, and one more in an evolutionary context in terms of how you iterate and evolve and how you get better, and also general problem solving strategies which come from computing. Now, when you talk of problem solving is a very vast area. But in the context of computer science, there are certain strategies. In the context of computer science, there are certain strategies which come from computing. When I talk of certain strategies which come from computing, binary search or this heuristics, right? Divide and conquer, you various ideas which come in, right, from computing. These can be taught at school. And also possibilities of computer usage. Like I think in one of my 10xer mindset workshop, I spoke about how technology can enable problem solving, right? Where can you use a computer? Why would you use a computer, right? Let me tell you a small story regarding this. During the Gulf War crisis, airlines were not profitable. Airlines were not profitable because the fuel cost was increasing. But you could not increase the ticket cost. Your cost is increasing. You pay more for your fuel, right? But your revenue is not increasing. Your cost is increasing, but your revenue is not increasing. So you're getting into losses. So at that time, they went and asked a lawyer to solve the problem. The lawyer was like, "Are you mad? I'm a lawyer. I'm not a finance person. How would you expect me to solve the problem?" Then they said, "Look, all the MBAs are only thinking in MBA style. And MBA style, we're not getting a solution. We need out-of-the-box solution. So we need a lawyer to solve." So then the guy went and observed different airports and different people who were flying. Then he asked a question. This family people, they're booking their tickets well in advance. And these business passengers, they're booking their tickets very late and they don't mind paying extra. But they want the ticket to be available in the last moment. Why are you charging the same amount? Then they said, "But I don't know how many people might come in the last moment. I don't know how many tickets to save. So that's why I'm forced to sell them initially only for a low price. So then he said, let us use computers. Let us store the data of who is buying how many tickets on which day. So by using the past data, we'll predict how many tickets to save till the last moment. What will happen if your prediction goes wrong? Let's say I predict that I'll get 5 business class passengers in the last moment. Let's say I predict that I'll get 5 business class passengers in the last moment. But instead of 5, I get 7. What will happen? Loss of 2 tickets, no? 2 tickets I would have sold at double the price, but I could not because I thought only 5 will come. But instead of 5, let's say I predicted 3. No, sorry. Let's say I predicted 5, but I got 3. Then I have a revenue loss because 2 seats are vacant. I'm flying with 2 seats vacant. So I need to get my prediction right. But if I can use past data, I can use computers there. I'm able to use my past data and predict. So this is one story of how computers can be useful. Right? So you can think of various stories of where computers come in. You don't need the child to be able to program, but you don't need the child to be able to use the software. But if the child knows where a computer can be used, that's where tech leadership can come in. Somebody is aware of such a possibility. Somebody is aware that such a problem can be solved using computers. So they're saying computer usage can be explored. The place occupied by computers in the modern world. What is the role of a computer in the modern world has to be explored. And the societal issues which come because of computers in the modern world have to be brought in. Is Nitin still here? Okay. Now, so we'll now move to the science curriculum. One important human response to wonder and awe of nature from the earliest times has been to observe the physical and biological environment carefully and look for meaningful patterns and relations, make and use tools to interact with nature. We look at nature, we make meaningful patterns and relations, and we make tools to interact with nature. This human endeavor has led to modern science. Broadly speaking, the scientific method involves several interconnected steps. The scientific method involves several interconnected steps. Observation, looking for regularities and patterns, making hypotheses. Observation, looking for regularities and patterns, making hypotheses, devising qualitative or mathematical tools, deducing the consequences. Mic's on mute, please. Yeah. Deducing consequences. What do you mean by deducing consequences? If gravity exists, I throw an apple, it will fall down. So I can find a consequence of a theory. Then verification or falsification of theories through observation and controlled experiments, arriving at principles, theories, and laws governing the nature. So the various things like I find a common pattern. What is a pattern between movement of Pluto and movement of Jupiter? I'm able to come up with consequences. I'm able to either verify the theory or prove a theory to be false by making certain observations. Controlled experiments, that is all the variables and the overall environment is under a certain framework so that I can make certain observations. The laws of science, for example, the trials, right? COVID trials which are happening for vaccine, that would be a controlled experiment. The laws of science are never viewed as fixed eternal truth. The laws of science are never viewed as fixed eternal truth. Complete opposite of what we study in school, no? We look at science that this is the rule and it has to be. But science never looks at it as a fixed eternal truth. Even the most established and universal laws of science are always regarded as provisional, subject to modification in the light of new observations, experiment, and analysis. Science is a dynamic, expanding body of knowledge covering ever new domains of experience. In a progressive, forward-looking society, science can play a truly liberating role. In a progressive, forward-looking society, science can play a truly liberating role, helping people escape from the vicious cycle of poverty, ignorance, and superstition. helping people escape from the vicious cycle of poverty, ignorance, and superstition. The advances in science and technology have transformed traditional fields such as agriculture and industry, and they led to the emergence of wholly new fields of work. People today are faced with an increasingly fast changing world where the most important skills are flexibility, innovation, and creativity. In the fast changing world, the important skills are flexibility, innovation, and creativity. These different imperatives have to be kept in mind while shaping science education. So these are the various considerations which one may have to look at while thinking of science education. Good science education is true to the child, true to life, and true to science. It is true to the child, true to life, and true to science. Very deep and meaningful statement, right? The simple observation leads to basic criteria of validity of a science curriculum. When do you say that your science curriculum is valid? They're saying these are the criteria. One is cognitive validity. Requires that the content, process, language, and the pedagogical practices of the curriculum are age appropriate and within the cognitive reach of the child. Whatever content you give, language or pedagogy, whatever you do, is it age appropriate and is it within the cognitive reach of the child? Content validity requires that the curriculum must convey significant and correct scientific information. That the information be significant and it also be correct. Simplification of content, which is necessary for adapting the curriculum to the cognitive level of the learner, must not be so trivialized as to convey something basically flawed or meaningless. Don't dumb it down. In the process of trying to simplify something, don't dumb it down so badly that you're making it flawed or meaningless. The process validity requires that the curriculum should engage the learner in acquiring the methods and processes that lead to the generation and validation of scientific knowledge. That the learner learns not just the scientific facts, but the methods and processes through which scientific knowledge is generated and validated. How is scientific knowledge created? And how do you check such scientific knowledge? That can be taught to the child. Process validity is an important criteria since it helps the student in learning to learn science. It's not just learning science, but learning how to learn science. Historical validity requires that the science curriculum be informed by historical perspective, enabling the learner to appreciate how the concepts of science evolve over time. That you don't just teach science, but you teach how science developed over a period of time so that the evolution can be understood. It also helps the learner to view science as a social enterprise and to understand how social factors influence the development of science. How was the society at that point of time? How is the society today? Due to the changing nature of the society, how science has changed. The connection of science to society and the connection of science to the connection of the society to development of science. The nature of the society, how does it lead to a certain kind of science that can be understood. Environmental validity requires that science be placed in a wider context of the learner's environment, local as well as global, enabling him or her to appreciate the issues at the interface of science, technology, and society, equipping him or her with the requisite knowledge and skills to enter the world of work. So the immediate context, I mean, if you're teaching science to a student in a village, are you connecting that science with the environment around the student? That is important so that the child can connect science, technology, and society and be ready for the workplace. Ethical validity requires that the curriculum promotes the values of honesty, objectivity, cooperation, and freedom from fear and prejudice, and inculcate in a learner a concern for life and preservation of the environment. So ethical considerations, environmental considerations, environment not in terms of preserving the environment, but the environment around the child. What is the environment around the child, and is the science being connected to the environment of the child? Something they're saying. Historical validity, how science changed over a period of time. Process validity, that the child is learning how science is a process and not science as a body of knowledge. And content, you're giving proper content, and cognitive validity in the sense that it's reachable to the child. So this is something they've written as far as the science education is concerned. Now, we will do this curriculum at different stages in the next session because I think it is concerning multiple things. So as I said, if we get enough time, we will do art education. because art education was, quite interesting. For decades now, the importance of arts in the education system has been repeatedly debated. The importance of arts education has been repeatedly debated. Do you really have to teach arts or not is something which people have been debating, but without much progress in the direction. It has been debated, discussed, and recommended, but without much progress. The need to integrate art education in the formal schooling of a student now requires urgent attention if we are to retain our unique cultural identity in all its diversity and richness. If we want to retain our unique cultural identity with all the diversity and richness, we need to pay a lot of attention to the role of art education in formal schooling. Far from encouraging the pursuit of arts, our education system has steadily discouraged young students and creative minds from taking to the arts, or at best permits them to consider arts to be useful hobbies or leisure activities. Arts have only been seen as useful hobbies or leisure activities. The arts are reduced to tools for enhancing the prestige of the school on occasions like Independence Day, Founders Day, Annual Day, or during the inspection of the school's progress and working. I mean, NCF can really get sarcastic. So before or after that, the arts are abandoned for the better part of the child's school life, and the school is headed towards the subjects that are perceived to be more worthy of attention. So you're doing arts only during these important days and sort of ignore that. General awareness of the arts is ebbing steadily among not just students, but also their guardians, teachers, and even among policymakers and educationists. Schools and school authorities encourage the arts of a superficial and popular nature and take pride in putting up events that showcase song and dance performances and plays that may entertain but have little aesthetic quality. That cultural performances and all are happening, but little to do with aesthetic quality. Vidya, are you on the call?
Yeah, Tarun.
Does this ring some bells
Yeah.
of what you said?
Yeah, Tarun. Yeah.
Would you want to just state it for everybody here?
Uh, I mean, what exactly do you want me to elaborate on? Sorry.
You said you got it, no?
No. I mean, which part do you want me to be?
No, I said, did this ring some bells? I mean, 2 days back, a discussion on this parent-student interaction day. I said we'll have some fun activities, and what did you ask?
Will they have to be light or? Right. You
Is
said
this
they'll
what
be.
NCF is saying?
Hmm. Yeah, you said.
During
I mean.
annual day, you choose light activities, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you said they'll have to be fun, but they'll also have to be deep. So, I mean,
That aesthetic quality.
right, not compromising on the aesthetics. But, yeah.
Because 2 years back, I was meeting one parent who comes from Bengal, and he was asking me, how many of us attend plays or a book launch? We go and watch movies, we go to multiplexes on weekends, but these days, how many of us attend plays or attend a book launch? It's like, yeah, this dude makes sense. Because in a very evolved society, a society which is very evolved, people take a lot of interest in science, in literature, in arts, and all these fields, especially literature, debating, and all these things. People take a lot of interest. That's a very evolved society. And even if we see our history textbooks, we see that great kings have patronized these arts, right? So when we talk of arts, are we talking of performing the latest Bollywood Sheila Ki Javani or something, or are we talking of arts? So yeah, it's quite disturbing, right? Sheila Ki Javani and all is performed in schools. I mean, one day I was stunned that in a preschool there was a dance performance which was happening, and the song was like "Tu Mera Girlfriend, Main Tera Boyfriend," and there's some song. I was like, what the hell, preschool, man? So I'm like, I mean, I had this question: do you guys even listen to the lyrics, or is it just the tune which matters for you all? So because like I'm going a little off tangent, but the question is, I don't know, when I grew up, when I was in school, this Lakadi ke Kati, Kati ke Goda, that there was those nice songs. I don't know if you guys had that in school. There were nice songs, or this one, Hum Honge Kamyab, और कोशिश करने वालों की कभी हार नहीं होती है. So, I mean, even in today's world, you do have beautiful songs written that way. Right, Sirunala Sitaram Shastri in Telugu writes beautiful songs. Some of his songs, I feel, have to be a part of school prayer. Right. So, do we study the role of art in transforming somebody's personality? Because there's one beautiful Telugu movie in that there's one character who says, "Don't think art is something which gives you a livelihood. Art is something which gives you a life. Don't think art is something which gives you a livelihood. Art is something which gives you a life." Let me tell that in Telugu so that the true emotion is there. Kalante bratku nichede anukoku. Kalante bratku nerpedi. Says, it's not something which gives you a livelihood. It is something which teaches you what is life. So when you say art is something which teaches you what is life, are we showing this aspect of how art can make you human? I've been a strong believer of this. Be it exposure to poetry or theater or any other form of literature and so on. We can no longer afford to ignore the importance of arts and must concentrate all possible energies and resources towards nurturing artistic capabilities and creating cultural and artistic awareness among students of the vast and varied cultural inheritance we have. The arts in India are a living example of the culture of the country's secular fabric and the cultural diversity. They include a variety of folk and classical forms of music and dance, theatre, puppetry, day work, visual arts and crafts from every region of India. For example, when you talk of this, there's Surabi art form, very popular in Ballari, Karnataka, over there. It's a dying art form. And I was very happy, 2 years back in Maker Fair in Hyderabad, there was a Surabi performance and different people were watching Surabi. Or here, in Telugu speaking states, we have something called the specific kind of puppetry where people actually make puppets with leather and so on, and that's again a dying art. So do we expose children to these kind of art forms to talk of the diversity of art, and through that art can we showcase what the culture is? That's a question which NCF is asking. Then children must develop these skills in these areas and not treat them as merely entertaining fringe. Through the arts curriculum, students must be introduced to rich and varied artistic traditions of the country. Arts education must become both a tool and a subject taught in every school as a compulsory subject, and facilities for the same may be provided in every school. All the 4 mainstreams covered by the term arts, music, dance, visual arts, and theatre should be included. Awareness also needs to be built among parents and guardians, school authorities, and administrators regarding the importance of arts. Emphasis should be given to learning rather than teaching, and the approach should be participatory, interactive, and experiential rather than instructive. Throughout the years of school, during all stages and mediums the mediums and forms of art allow children to develop both a playful as well as a disciplined exploration of themselves. Both playful as well as a disciplined exploration, and diverse materials allows them to experiment many forms of expression. Music, theater, and dance all contribute to development of the self, both cognitive and social. Social self as well as cognitive self comes from this art. The importance of such experiences during pre-primary and primary school cannot be overemphasized. They're saying that these 4 forms of art are extremely crucial at pre-primary and primary stage. Language, exploration of nature, and an understanding of the self and others can all be experientially learned and understood by children through various art forms. By their very nature, art forms allow children to participate. Resources for the integration of arts and heritage craft should be available in every school. Thus, it is important that curriculum provide adequate time for a range of art activities. Block periods of 1 hour to 1.5 hours are necessary, especially where theater, dance, and clay work are involved. Emphasis should not be on attaining some adult standards or notions of perfect art, but on supporting the child's own expression and style through exposure to material, skills and technique, but without overemphasizing them. Skill and technique has to be taught without overemphasizing it. Over the years, teachers would help children to move towards formulating and executing their own art projects independently with dedication and persistence, while cultivating a sense of aesthetic quality and excellence. We teach them art, but while we show them an idea of aesthetics, and children develop their own projects rather than telling them what to make and so on. I mean, how many of the children make their own art project in school? Right. In the secondary and higher secondary school, the art curriculum may allow children to specialize in some areas of their interest. Along with learning the skills and practicing them, children could also at this stage learn from the theory of art and aesthetic experience. Do we teach the theory of art and aesthetic experience, which could deepen their appreciation and also help them understand the significance of this area of knowledge? Because we need some knowledge also to appreciate art, right? So can we introduce them to the theory of art? Like, to give you an example, there are theories of literary criticism. How do you appreciate literature? There are literature theories. So there's one very nice course by Professor uh, Paul Fry of Yale University. You can watch on YouTube on literary criticism. Discussions about popular cultural art forms, different kinds of art tradition and creativity would also provide them with a perspective of various forms and the development of taste. So can you have discussions on various kinds of art forms? For example, on Surabhi, can we have a discussion? What is Surabhi art form? What makes Surabhi art form special and so on? So that way, can we have some discussions? It is important that, therefore, that the curriculum not be biased and judgmental about high or low forms of culture, not treat classical and folk art differently. I hope this makes sense. How many of us value classical art to be more than that of folk art? I mean, how many of us think that classical songs are more important, Carnatic or something is more important than folk songs? So, like, especially, I mean, over here, when I talk of Telangana, there's so many tribal cultures here and there's so many amazing folk songs here. But generally, there seems to be a sense of superiority, right? We think that classical songs are superior to folk songs. But there's wealth within that folk songs. And one aspect about folk songs is they're way older than classical songs. Some of the folk songs are. I mean, I don't know about the songs, but some of the tribal cultures are older than our modern cultures, especially when you talk of Gonds and this Austroasiatic tribes. They're some of the oldest people to inhabit this land. So can we get access to their culture, truly indigenous cultures through folk songs and folk literature? It would also prepare those who wish to study an art form for specialized study during +2 stage or even considering a career in arts. More resource material on arts and arts education should be made available for arts education teachers. Teacher education and orientation must include a significant component that will enable teachers to include arts education effectively, efficiently, and creatively. In addition, more Bal Bhavans, which have played an important role in urban scape, should be established at district headquarters and eventually at block centers as well. These would facilitate the additional teaching of arts and craft activities and provide opportunities for children to learn these firsthand. There's very interesting discussion in NCF also about learning spaces, I think within the same chapter, which you can go through. Then we also have how to design assessments and evaluation within the same chapter. And the next chapter is about, school and classroom environment. This third chapter was about, curriculum and assessments. I'll go back to the science curriculum once again to see some of the key points which came in the science curriculum, and then we'll go back to computer science curriculum again. So in science curriculum, it said that we need to pay attention to certain objectives. That is, the world is changing very quickly. So the new skills which are required are flexibility, innovation, and creativity. So while we design science education, while we look at science education, are we keeping this requirement in mind that we need individuals who are flexible, innovative, and creative? Then science has this role of, truly liberating role in a progressive, forward-looking society. Science is a truly liberating role in terms of taking people out of poverty, ignorance, and superstition. So do we develop a science curriculum which addresses those things? And science is not a fixed eternal truth, but they're always regarded as provisional. So various processes in science education are we exposing children to them, like observation, looking for patterns, making hypotheses, mathematical models, consequences, verification of theories or proving theories false, designing controlled experiments, arriving at principles or theorizing. These are things which are not taught in school. How to theorize, how to come up with your own theory. NCF says this is important while NCERT textbook doesn't do it. Then there are 6 criteria which they're saying which have to come in to evaluate science curriculum. Cognitive validity, is it, does the child have the brain development in place to do that? Content validity, is the content legit? Then process validity, are we teaching science as a process or as an output? Historical validity, are we seeing how science is developing over a period of time? Environmental validity, are we looking at the surroundings of the child and localizing it as per the surroundings? And ethical validity, are we also teaching honesty, objectivity, freedom from fear, prejudice, right? I mean, with science, can a student be free from fear? Now, let us say a child is coming from a society where all the people feel they're inferior to the other people. Let's say from a so-called backward caste, where over a period of time, people have been continuously programmed to believe that they're inferior. By teaching science, can you empower the child to believe that the child is equal to the others? So does science have the potential to make the kid break away from that fear? A lot of people say, I'm not a science person, I'm not a science person. But then is science a very integral part to our existence? Is science an empowerment tool which helps us question everything around us and which saves us from, brainwashing or prejudice of various kinds? So do we have to equip every child to be a science person? Not in terms of doing Snell's law or in terms of doing Boyle's law, but in terms of questioning whatever assumption is given to us and experimentally validating it before believing something. Science as experimentation. Science as believing in something only when there's proper experimental evidence given to us. Are we equipping every kid? Coming to computer science, they spoke of how these things like iterative processes, algorithms, problem solving in a computing context, the role of computers in modern society, and where computers have to be used. These are things which can be brought in computer science curriculum, is what they said. And they spoke of certain challenges because of lack of infrastructure computer science. And there was a discussion about the difference between IT and computer science and how they should not be confused. So these were some of the ideas which we discussed. So now I'd like to ask you one question. I think most of you also were there during when we discussed the maths curriculum and the language curriculum. So when you look at how NCF is looking at science, how NCF is looking at computer science, how NCF is looking at arts education, what do you see as the difference between what we usually read about education and what we read here? Which are usually called cargo cult education or WhatsApp university education. WhatsApp university where we learn what is good education and what is bad education. How is it different from what we see in general and what we see here, NCF 2005? Yeah, who's going in first? Yeah, please go ahead. Varnasri, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the main difference is to create a temperament, a scientific temperament, which the NCF is trying to build in. But most of our
scientific temperament, we generally hear, what's the difference? We generally hear about scientific temperament.
But we not implement it.
Even NCF also didn't implement. No, NCF is also talking. I'm saying in terms of the content, what is the new content? Scientific temperament is not new content. We all talk about it. It's a fundamental duty in the Indian Constitution. To imbibe scientific temperament is a fundamental duty. So what is a new thing we see here?
The new thing we see here is that science plays a progressive role in a progressive society, and that arts is not something that should be put in a debatable situation, that whether it should be taught or it is just,
That is
it
also,
shouldn't
we
be taught.
took that already. No? What is new in that? We already know that arts are important. We all talk about the importance of arts. What is new in NCF?
The way they have approached to each situation,
What is
the
that?
way they have
What
approached
is
to each
that? What
subject,
is that?
the way they have included incorporated science with computer science, and even have incorporated the
Oh,
scientific
you're
approach
beating around
in
the bush.
learning arts.
And now we are beating around the bush. I asked you a question. It's like a Rahul Gandhi answer. No? Question kuch tha, answer kuch aur hai. The question was arts education. What is the unique thing? I asked you arts education. What is the unique thing? You said art should not be debated. It should be done. What is unique? Then you said that the way in which art should be taught. Then I asked which is that way in which art should be taught. Then you're talking about computer science. I asked which is that specific way in which art should be taught, which NCF is saying.
The way in which art should be taught is by renovating the syllabus, is by incorporating is by giving the kids the opportunity or the power to build projects on arts, to learn arts.
Tare Zameen Par pe Amir Khan already told that. No, what does that mean?
But everyone is telling, no one is implementing it. We do not see.
No, again we're beating around the bush. We're beating around the bush. Let's understand the question. Language skills. Let's understand the question. What is the question? What is new about these ideas compared to what we already know? I'm not talking about implementation. Even NCF didn't implement it. No, NCF is saying do it. Let's understand the question first. One problem with us is we usually jump the gun without understanding the question. What is new in this content compared to what we already know? Because whatever points you said, we already know.
It's a holistic approach of like nothing is different from the other. Everything can be included and combined to create a good experience or a holistic experience.
Holistic education, we all keep talking, we know it, right?
But are we doing? I don't know. Are we doing
No, again, same thing. I'm asking in terms of ideas, what are the new ideas here?
Yeah,
Holistic education is not a new idea. Yeah, Shivani, go ahead.
I guess thing you're looking for is maybe aesthetic values inclusion in the art form, I guess.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Correct. So one thing is it talks about the value of aesthetics in arts education, something which we don't hear that often. Only when you see a very good artist speak, probably they would talk about it. Okay. Any other points which we saw unique ideas?
Emphasis should be given on learning rather than teaching.
Okay, but that's still borderline. We usually hear that. Any new ideas which we heard?
I mean, also giving importance to the theories around art and criticism.
Correct. Theories of art, aesthetics. Okay, then.
Like using.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Shivani, please go ahead.
Yeah, so like they are focusing on the empowerment of like the people who have fear or people who belong to backward caste or something.
Right, that is in the science curriculum. Okay.
Already, also it was there in the literature one. When they were asking for particular use of particular languages. You can you just have to convey the content, but it shouldn't, the language shouldn't be the barrier in that.
Yeah, I think Shravya was saying something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there is an emphasis on how each aspect like language or science or art helps the student in terms of, for art they spoke about how it helps them understand themselves better, and science in terms of not believing anything and trying to experiment. So it talks about how everything can help the student in some way.
What is the purpose of each discipline in a child's life is clearly defined. Okay, that's a good observation. Anything else what you've seen in the computer science curriculum or science curriculum or arts curriculum? Something which we don't usually see, which we saw today. Yeah. Anything with respect to science curriculum? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, first thing is about computer education. How to one very important point we encountered is that how where we can use computers for problem solving, which type of problems we can incorporate the knowledge of computers.
Okay.
Without that is one thing. And second, in science education part, we have learned they've given actually the process, just like how the process of discovering the things. They have emphasized more on the process, and they have given some what to tell points. They've given the milestones in our process checking and validation. They have emphasized, though we teach childrens in experimenting all these things, not to that extent, but main thing is coming developing their own cognitive skills with the specified process, designing the curriculum in this. And coming to arts process, it's actually in the they have more emphasis in pre-primary and primary stage. We have to emphasize more on art. We have to
They didn't say that. That's a misinterpretation.
design.
They didn't say that arts is
They
more
haven't.
important in pre-primary and primary. They said arts
Yeah,
is important all through.
yeah. They said I'm what like it it adds another forms of expressions for the children to explore. So in that way, if we, yeah,
They said that arts are
sorry,
extremely
that
crucial. Arts are extremely crucial in pre-primary and primary stage. And they've given the purpose also over why arts are extremely useful in pre-primary and primary stage, because they said it helps them in exploring their self and understanding who they are. Please go ahead.
yeah, and these are the points I could take. And
I also,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Shravya, go ahead.
yeah, I also think there is an emphasis on the right way to introduce these things to the children, right? For example, the language, I attended the language session. They say that for the first few years, you shouldn't correct them in terms of grammar or anything, and acknowledge the fact that the student already has this ability to pick up these things. And yes, and even in the art case, it was mentioned that overemphasizing skills is not important at that stage, but emphasizing on their expression is more important.
Right.
I mean, so I think it kind of emphasizes on the right way or the right process to introduce these things to kids in a step-by-step manner.
To learn
Yes, Anya, go ahead.
like I understood like we can take a point like in science part they told ki how to learn science, like how to learn the beauty of science, like they told how to learn the science. And also like they told about the processes also, key processes is important, as in NCRT it is not mentioned, but to learn the processes, how to come up with processes and experiments, so that like we go to that solution and all.
Yeah, I think one point in continuation with what Sanya said is that in all the subjects, they tend to list out the processes involved in the discipline and say these processes are to be introduced to children.
Yeah.
And somebody who finds this interesting, I would encourage you to watch this video of Professor R. Ramanujan on moving education from content to process. What does it mean to move education from content to process? There's a video of his in which he gives a lot of examples and explains it. So I think that's an interesting video to look at. So in science, they've explained what are the processes. In mathematics also, they listed what are the processes involved, like generalization, abstraction, and so on. They listed. In science, they spoke of experiment design and so on. So yeah, in art, I think they haven't gone into much detail of processes, but social science again is a very detailedly written curriculum. So one of the days we'll read social studies curriculum as well. But I hope this also gives you an idea of the kind of detail they've gone into to, I mean, you wouldn't see this kind of document in the other parts of the world. I mean, the kind of depth, it can come from Nehru's India, right? So if anybody here has read Nehru, you would know why I would make that statement. That we as Indians love abstraction so much that either Ramayana or Mahabharata alone is greater than Iliad plus Odyssey put together. So we love long documents, having the world's largest constitution, and love for abstraction in all our stories. So it's not surprising that NCF truly inherits that sort of a legacy in moving the society forward by bringing together great and deep ideas of how curriculum can be done. So I hope in the next session we will we'll pick one other very interesting aspect and go deep in that. Maybe assessment design is what I'm looking at. How do we design assessments? How do we look at, I think one of the challenges is most of the times people design an assessment by go pick up some questions de diye ho gaya assessment. But what does an assessment mean? So I think that's a very important question for us to think about. In the next session, hopefully we'll discuss that. Yeah. Thank you for joining me.
Bye.